Hello, folks, and welcome back to another episode of Retake. We are on the verge of a landmark here in North American and Indian Counter-Strike, as OpTic has just announced that they're looking to pick up an Indian squad, an all-Indian squad. And to talk us through this, I've got Nick, Ash's Ridgeway, who works with player support and also coaches the OpTic Gears of War team. I've also got Aequitas from SoStronk. We at AFK, we're pumped up for this. We literally built a green wall behind us. Jokes aside, how's it going, Nick?
It's going well. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Prashant, you're going to be spearheading the player selection process. I mean, we've got a bunch of people tuning into the podcast. A lot of them would like to know, what's your background in Counter-Strike and why are you the right person to be working with OpTic to pick the best talent out of India?
Well, I would not say like I'd be the one spearheading it. Like I'm actually the person on the ground here that is helping set up the knowledge transfer, so to say, from the Indian scene to the OpTic scouting department, and then they make the final call, basically, right?
Okay.
So my background is that I've played Counter-Strike for a very, very long time, all over the world. So I played in the Asian scene for a majority of my life since I grew up in Singapore, and then throughout my university and early work years, I played in the US and in Europe, and mostly as an IGL. And then on the side, I've done analyst coaching stuff. So I understand my Counter-Strike and can definitely guide in picking the right candidates.
Right. And I think we've already got 464 registrations.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah. I mean, India's just waiting to play for the OpTic banner and the OpTic brand. Nick, what is OpTic looking to accomplish with this? What are some of the short-term or the long-term goals for OpTic and them coming to India?
So OpTic has always been prideful in being kind of innovators. We like to enter spaces and kind of give a chance for that space to grow and develop with the power of our brand and the amazing green wall. So our goal is to enter India, pick up some really talented Counter-Strike players, because we have been watching the scene and we do know that in a population so large, there are definitely talented players there. We've seen some showcase themselves here and there, but this trial process is definitely a chance for everybody who thinks they have the talent and the strength in the game to showcase that to us. So our goal is to build this talented roster and give them all of the resources and tools that a professional team anywhere else in the world might have. So a gaming house and salaries and coaching staff and all the support that they need to really develop that talent into something incredible, while also showing the region, hey, this is what we do everywhere else. Let's do it here. Let's get excited about esports and encourage this growth in such an amazing country.
And
Yeah.
like me and Vivek have talked about that a lot, actually, that one of the biggest things that the scene needs is not only from the organizational point of view, like the structure and all, but mainly like international experience, like coaches and analysts bringing that in and teaching a lot of talented mechanical and gifted individuals how to approach practice and training and growth in the right ways. Yeah.
Right. Aequitas, I think you're working with the head coach from OpTic about this. I mean,
Yeah, I'm working with Ali Sabah, who's the one of the chief scouts, I believe, of
Okay.
OpTic Gaming. Yeah.
Okay. And I think we've got the online phase kicking off. Then we move into an offline phase. Could you just talk us through how you're looking and recruiting Counter-Strike players? What's
Sure.
your
So
process?
we're not leaving any stone unturned. Like, look, the Indian scene has been growing an ecosystem and there's quite a few big tournaments, but it's not the same as the goldmine of data that exists for like top level talent recruitment, right? So we're going to have to do the best that exists out there in terms of demos, statistics. Luckily, I have a platform, so most of these guys play on the platform, and we have a lot of data from that. But the general process is this: that we're going to be first doing an open evaluation where anybody who thinks they're good enough, they go and apply on SoStronk.com/OpTic, and they basically go through what I call a role-based test. So
Okay.
based on if you are applying to be an in-game leader, or an entry, a lurker, or an helper, you can apply multiple times to different roles as well if you think you are god at all 5 roles, right? So, and it's like very subjective questions, testing the person's acumen, his game sense, his thinking, his understanding of what is important to in a teammate, what's important in himself, etc. lot of drop traps in there as well. And then the second step is the parallel step is the closed evaluation, which is from my side a pre-selected candidates list, already existing people that we know are talented enough, that we know, not the rough diamonds that we're trying to find from the open evaluation, slightly shining diamonds, so to say,
Like
right? And
something
yeah,
like the next players. And for those of you
exactly.
outside India, that's our equivalent of FPL. That's the equivalent of
Exactly.
FPL in Asia. I mean, in Asia, everybody plays SoStronk next. So, I have any next players applied? Have any players of that skill caliber given it
So
a
most of
shot?
them are going. Yeah, a lot of them have asked me about the process, and see the obviously with an open tryout system where we're trying to build a new team out of scratch. The only resistance is typically like a lot of people who are loyal to the existing team, and they want to get picked up as an entire team, right? So it's about
Ah,
talking to them and convincing them about like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You guys should try it out, at least even for the experience itself. You guys could learn a thing or two from just going through the experience of the land tryouts and talking to and seeing how a proper evaluation process works, so that if you don't do so well this time around, you can improve your you can work on the things that were lacking, so to say, right? And then yeah, then it ends with a land tryout basically,
okay.
which is
So in the lands, they're going to
mhm.
be playing scrims versus each other. You'll be like probably finding one of each role, making a team, and then making them scrim versus each other.
Exactly. So
Okay.
what we're going to do is we're going to bring in like say 30 to 40 people, the final shortlisted candidates, and they will be broken down based on roles. So like we'll have 5 IGLs, 5 Oppers, 5 entry, 5 lurkers, and the land trial will be built into 2 phases. So there's the practical side, which is just mixed scrims, constant mixed scrims, but fixed roles. So each mix has to have an in-game leader and an Opper and a lurker, for example, and we just keep mixing the teams and listening into their comms and all that to evaluate the practical side. And then there'll be like some theory workshops where we like take all the IGLs in the room and we make them watch a particular VOD or a demo and ask them some questions and then they answer that. Yeah.
Okay. It seems quite thorough. You mentioned one thing in there that's actually going to be quite interesting, Prashant. You said you're going to
Mm-hmm.
listen in on their comms. Now, in
Mm-hmm.
Indian Counter-Strike, and we being a country of at least a minimum of 6 to 7 languages that we speak,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
most teams tend to come from one particular region of the country. Uh,
Mumbai.
I mean, no, like, I mean, there's a Hyderabadi team, there's a Bangalore-based
Oh
team,
yeah,
there's a Mumbai-based
sure.
team, there's a Delhi-based team. Everybody with their own comfort level with people from their own state. Uh, uh, I don't know. So your IGL has got to be bilingual at least, or I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
they've got to find some comfort.
yeah. I mean, like look at it this way, right? Because we're mixing the teams. Uh, the majority language I'll be using will be either Hindi or English just to communicate. And yes, there will be some people who are maybe weak in Hindi and English, and it might not be the primary language, and that's where it's exactly what's happening in the international scene as well. Like there's no geographical boundaries now between lineups and communication across multiple languages. I mean, I think it'll sort itself out. The first round will be tough, obviously, for these guys who don't speak Hindi or English as their primary language, but it'll sort itself out
Okay.
over the long
Uh,
term.
Ashes, I wanted to ask you something, and this is something that you share with Aequitas. Both of you all have a very common coaching philosophy, although you all coach for different games. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, so fun fact, Ashes actually switched his degree and decided to pursue psychology so that he could
Hmm.
have a career in esports. Um, from just generally being around OpTic and working with esports and esports professionals at the highest level, uh,
Mhm.
how what are you looking for from the players as far as their psychological being is concerned? Because I mean, you got to be good players, but you also got to be good teammates and build chemistry. So what would a good candidate look like?
To me, a good candidate is somebody who can be open-minded,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who is readily available to give criticism as well as receive criticism, and that's kind of touching on the in-game leader thing. You talked about the difficulties that might happen with language barriers and people from different states, but overall, somebody who's a natural leader, you can really tell those traits when they're put in a group, even if everybody's feeling a little bit uncomfortable or maybe a little awkward. The natural leader is going to come out of whoever that in-game leader will be, and that's really going to
Exactly.
be a good show of who is going to be a good in-game leader and who's going to be a great in-game leader. So people who are open to criticism and willing to learn, you really have to understand that a player who wants to go pro and is striving to go pro, no matter where they're from, is somebody who's willing to do anything it takes to get to that level. So they are willing to put aside little instances where their ego might flare up because they know that going pro is the goal, not making themselves feel good and making excuses for whatever might have happened or what went wrong. Their goal is to go pro. So they're going to do anything it takes to get to that level. And that's something that's going to be really important.
Okay. I think we've got questions coming in from chat. I'm going to pull them up every now and then as and when they come. Are there other regions that OpTic is considering picking up teams in? The Middle East, maybe? Or
We are...
Yeah.
India is our first and one of our more exciting ones, but we're not closing the door to any other regions. We're always keeping our eyes open for other possibilities.
Okay. Any reason why India? I mean,
we think.
Yeah.
Go ahead. We think that India has an amazing demographic that needs this exposure to esports. You guys are starting to do it on your own. You're building, these grassroots tournaments and these big buildups. I've seen for not only Counter-Strike but fighting game communities as well. And you have just a great population of supporters towards something that could be so big. We see esports growing exponentially throughout the world. So it just makes sense that with, like we talked earlier, a population so large, there's definitely going to be that talent there, and it makes sense.
Okay. And to add to that, like, it's also not only is the population massive, it's also one of the youngest populations in the world. Like, I believe like more than 50% or so are below the age of 25.
And the amount of those people who actually are heavily involved in video games already is very large as well, I believe, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yes. I mean, across all games, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's starting though. I would still say, like, for example, the growth is very rapid over the last 3 years, and until then, it was like much less exposure.
Yeah.
I think India was a very black and white nation as far as esports was concerned. It was just CS or Dota. But now we're diversifying. There are all sorts of games being played. There are all sorts of streamers coming up. So it's an interesting phase. There are some more questions coming in from chat. I think this is a particularly interesting one. And I think this is more related to the scouting aspect of picking up these players. Is there an age limit?
Sorry?
Is there an age limit? Is there an age limit for the players?
I mean, if you're asking me, I mean, I believe there is an age limit, but the general discussion was that it's more about the attitude than the age limit. But the general discussion was that we're looking for younger players in general because they'd probably be easier to shape and mold and teach from the beginning, as opposed to slightly more established players who already have their habits that you have to first erase before building on it.
Okay.
So
I mean,
but if the attitude's right, it doesn't matter the age. If he's got everything else.
Yeah. So age doesn't matter as long as you're coachable. You should give it a shot.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. They have to be hungry for it.
Absolutely. You mentioned the 5 roles that you're looking for. You're looking for a lurker, you're looking for an IGL, you're looking for a rifler, an opper, and somebody who runs utility or support. How do you describe a good IGL? Because we barely had any.
Wow.
How are you judging or evaluating an IGL? That's so tricky. I mean, it's mostly going to be listening onto comms, right?
Sure. Yeah, obviously you have to listen to comms. I think comms is like, Counter-Strike is a game of information, and the medium of that information is communication, right? So it's the most important aspect of the in-game leader role, in my opinion. But we'll be looking at everything from man management to understanding his players' strengths and utilizing them properly, like say resource management, for example, even general map sense and game sense and adaptation on the fly. And there's a lot of things you'll be looking at for a proper IGL. And by the way, we're not like we're looking at all these roles because it's easy to evaluate people if you break them down into roles. But there's no guarantee that, I mean, the only guarantee is that there will be an IGL in the lineup, but there's no guarantee that we'll exactly find one Opper, one Lurker, one entry, one IGL. It could even be a case where we get like 2 Lurkers and an Opper and an IGL. It just depends on who fits the team the best at the end of the land tryout. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think Indian supporters aren't entirely savvy to an organization and its history. Nick, can you tell us a little bit about OpTic? Where did it begin? I know it had something to do with Call of Duty highlights, but I think you can tell this better.
Yeah, so OpTic started off, I think back in 2006, I believe, as an organization that was more just one of those kind of clans that you saw in Call of Duty. It was a group of friends, really. It's if you go back to its very, very original roots, and they just enjoyed playing the game together. And from there was kind of some leadership changes. They were mostly sniping and uploading content in Call of Duty. And then it kind of developed. Hector, OpTic Hex, had a vision for moving into esports and really promoting that side of Call of Duty because he saw the value in esports before a lot of people did. And so when he started to make that move, we saw a lot of other groups kind of follow suit, and it proved to be successful, where he was supporting a team who was dedicated to competing, not just doing the best sniper trick shot, but out there winning tournaments and giving it their all. And so he really fostered that and then started to expand into other games.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, OpTic's really grown. Last year, y'all had a Dota team. Y'all have picked up a new CSGO roster. Y'all are coming to India. So there's a lot of growth coming up from OpTic. And I'm really curious to see what and how this affects India. I have one more question, and I think we really don't have this concept in India. And a couple of people on HLTV and Reddit were talking about this. But is this an academy roster? What is an academy roster? Because I don't think that's a concept we have, Nick.
I think academy kind of depends on the game, and you might be able to say more for Counter-Strike than, or a better way for Counter-Strike than I would. But I know for most games, an academy roster is more there to learn from a roster directly above it, where we're kind of doing that, but we're also giving all of the same tools that a pro roster anywhere else would have to this roster that's representing OpTic in India. Okay. So it's not really an academy roster. We're giving them the tools to be their own pro roster.
Right.
At least how we're looking at it.
So an academy roster is like a B team, which
sort of, yeah,
works and shadows the A team.
Exactly.
I mean, but we're getting the knowledge transfer. But you're saying that, guys, you don't have to be a B team. You can be your own team and be better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And typically, like an academy roster in CS would operate in the same region, because the B team often also becomes like the feeder team to the main team if there's roster shuffles and stuff like that. No, because that's how it's a good way to discover and nurture talent. You know, and that's how people do it in football clubs, for example. Right. And so that would be but if it's in the same region, so I kind of get when Nick says that this is like an entirely different pro team on their own because they're in their own region.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. I mean, there's no way we scrim OpTic with
exactly.
Yeah, that's not going to happen unless we move there, which I don't know. But yeah, so as far as goals go or landmarks for this Indian team, could you give us a timeline? Like, by when should this team be aiming to qualify for an Asian event or a major or a minor? Is there like a timeline, something that you're working with, as far as results are concerned?
I think that's a question better answered by Aequitas.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it's too early to start setting goals. We've not even found the players yet. But okay. I would assume that they have realistic but ambitious goals in the pipeline. You know, I'm very much part of the scouting process, but I'm not as of right now part of the coaching process. Right, okay. So that's where a coach or the assigned coach and the analyst, they would be able to answer that. But I'm assuming, okay, you know, step by step evolution. Get good in Southeast Asia, start becoming competitive there, then the next year, and then the next year, and eventually the minors and the majors. Yeah.
And I think to add on to a little bit, we want to make sure that we're not rushing this process at all. We want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to actually find these talented players and not just go with whatever looks great the first day. Like we want people to be able to showcase themselves. We want to be able to properly and professionally analyze their skill sets and then build that roster effectively. So as much time as that takes for us to be effective with it, then that's our plan.
Okay. Um, I think we've got a bunch of questions also coming in. I think there's one bit of optics history that I don't fully understand. I mean, where does this originate? Where does the term the green wall come from? What's the story behind that one?
The green wall, it's actually kind of funny. So the original group, including Hector, there were some others who were friends of his. We call them the old men of OpTic now, but Diesel and a few others. Hector's brother is one of them. They're very large guys. They're upper, 6 feet tall or more. They're big guys. And so when this Call of Duty team was at these tournaments competing and they're sitting at these stations, Hector and this group would be standing kind of shoulder to shoulder behind them, supporting them, cheering them on, being loud, being a distraction, and they're wearing green OpTic apparel or jerseys or whatever the case may be. Okay. And it was kind of a term or a phrase that was coined because they were literally just a wall of green that it made it almost hard to see the station because you've got this fan base of these dedicated original OpTic members supporting the team, and that now the green wall is blown up into our amazing fan base.
Okay, that's nice.
That's a really cool story.
Yeah,
it is.
I also wanted to ask you, you partnered up with some people in India to help you with this. Could you tell me more about some of the people that you've chosen to work with you on this OpTic India team?
We've gotten some actually really talented people to help us with this. We are sending out one of our other player support coordinators, Jasel, and he's going to be kind of heading the research and the talent acquisition process along with Ali. And in order to make sure that we're doing everything appropriately, Jasel kind of comes from, he's American, but he's also got a respect for the Indian culture. He is Indian, so he's got both worlds and a really firm understanding of how to best communicate between the two. And so we feel like having him out there and taking lead on this whole project is going to be super crucial and helpful for us to be effective in this region.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any difficulties that you're expecting with running a team in India? Because this has never been done before. In the history of esports, no brand from anywhere else has said that, guys, we're going to India and we're setting up a team. I don't think it's even happened in Asia. No.
Depending on the game. In Counter-Strike, sure, yeah it's the first, yeah.
In Counter-Strike, not in other games. I don't know. Are you going to be visiting India? Are you looking forward to coming? Will you be coming, or will Jessel be handling most of that?
I think we're going to let Jasel handle most of it. I would love to visit. It's a country that I've always wanted to visit. But I think we're going to let him take lead on that. And we trust in him to handle most of the process. Plus, we've got AFK as a partner. So, we definitely feel like we have the appropriate resources. And there's always going to be hiccups with anything new, especially of this kind of caliber. There's always going to be hiccups along the way. But we feel that with everybody that we're working with and with our strategy going into it, we are as prepared as we can possibly be to make this a success story for not only us, but for the players that we pick up in India as a whole.
Okay. I'm going to start moving towards the audience questions, and then we'll start to wrap things up. Bunch of questions coming in. I think other folks on chat can also start pushing through with their questions. One of the questions that I did see, and I mean, we're a country that takes part in a lot of competitive entrance exams. How many people will qualify to the main LAN playoff stage, or whatever you call it, the closed qualifier? How many people get through to the closed qualifier?
Like I said, around 40 people. If there's even more exceptional candidates, then that list can be extended. But we'll look at the results and we'll shortlist. You guys will know the exact final shortlist next Monday, basically.
Next Monday, okay. And I think another question that I wanted to bring up is there a map pool that you're working with? Are there any particular maps that you want to test these players on?
I mean, so there's no particular maps in the sense that, but it's important to have some constant assets when you're evaluating people, and we wanted to do that by map pool. If we left it all 7 maps, then it'd be hard to evaluate when we're already mixing the players around as well. So we've fixed it to like Inferno, Mirage, and Cache. They're very standard maps which can allow us to test a lot of stuff of mixed teams. When you throw in maps like Train and Nuke and stuff, mixed teams can't really perform on those maps. They're much more strategic and complex.
More coordinated
Exactly.
teams. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think that's a big tip. Although all you utility folks should probably start working on your smokes and flashes on these maps. We got more questions coming in. Aequitas, what is your dream team here? I mean, even if you have a
Why mine?
I mean, because you're part of the scouting process. The question is directed to you. I'll even ask Nick if he has a dream team. But
Without naming names, I'll keep it more philosophical. I won't name names because I don't want to bias the selection process or anything like that. But in an ideal world, I would want a team more than anything who can have a very good understanding of how to practice the right way and are willing to put in the effort to do that. Obviously, I want a team that's well balanced role wise. And more than anything else, I think the most important thing for a great team is a very good coach-IGL relationship. So that's just the most special relationship, and establishing that will be very important to be like the right coach and the right IGL. Yeah.
Okay. There was another question and I think I'm sure all the professional Indian Counter-Strike players are obviously thinking and talking about this. Somebody is speculating that this is going to break up teams and divide a lot of the already existing brands, because everybody wants to be a part of OpTic. and that's one question. It's just interesting to note what chat is saying. But the actual question is, would you consider picking up the old Invictus lineup? I think Prashant already answered this earlier.
I can't answer if OpTic's going to be picking up the entire team. If that's the results of a tryout, that these 5 individuals were head and above in their respective roles, and somehow like they were the best and they came together to be the same lineup, sure. But the chances of that happening are pretty low. I think across different roles, it will be the case of a very, very new team. And yes, that can result in some of the existing teams breaking up.
Okay.
That's definitely a possibility. Yeah.
Okay. Another question coming up from Vedant. Which first few tournaments will the Indian OpTic roster be aiming at? I mean, when will we see you guys take part in a tournament? Roughly. I think this one is for Nick.
It's really hard to answer that question because, again, it's going back to how long it takes us to build the roster, and then once we have the roster finalized, gauging where they're at and how long it'll take for them to be at the level where we're comfortable entering them into a tournament. So I think it's hard to really answer that specifically. It's more of just what the timing. We don't want to rush a brand new roster into a tournament and have them fail. It's just not good from a psychological aspect for any team. So what we want to make sure is that our roster is stable, that they're ready, and then start competing. I think that's going to be the main goals for us. So again, I'm sorry I can't give an exact timeline or a name of a tournament that we're going to be entering as our first tournament, but ultimately our goal is to compete. So you'll know when we're ready.
Okay. Anyway, we got a long competitive year of Indian CS, and there are a lot of Asian tournaments also coming up. I think we have a question, but I think this one's been answered. He's saying, have you been eyeing players in India or Asia? I think OpTic is very clear that they're focusing in only picking up Indian players.
Yes.
So Flankers asked a question, and this is, I'm going to extrapolate a bit from this question. Will conflicting team synergies and bad histories between players be taken into account? I'm sure Counter-Strike is a very mentally demanding game. And I think it's a game where players often lose and find consistency, find form, lose form. How are you evaluating the mental condition of a Counter-Strike player, Prashant? Because, I mean, sometimes you're good at CS, sometimes you suck. Sometimes you're good. Like, I think the mental aspect of a player is one to look out for. And I know you stress on that.
It's one of the most important aspects of being successful, not just in any competitive environment, not just in esports, but in generally in any competitive environment, right? So, uh, past histories, bad bloods, family dramas, these things exist in every scene, right? But um, we believe that like with the right leadership, the right structure, everybody can start from scratch. Everybody can absolutely start from scratch and with a clean slate, hopefully. I will be notifying all the details that I know
Okay.
to the OpTic head scout Ali, and then he can decide if how much he weighs those kind of things, like previous
Okay.
histories and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The final call is with him. You'll pass on the information and let him
hmm
make that call. We got another question from Siddharth. Will OpTic hire managers, analysts, support staff from India for this team, or is it going to be a mix of folks from all across? You spoke of Jessel, who's coming from OpTic America. Are you looking to hire more folks in India for this?
I think we're keeping all of our options open. Our main goal is just to make sure that the support staff that we provide is well versed and experienced and can give the players everything that they need in order to just focus on being the best that they can. That's really important to us, is just developing that talent. So we'll make sure that the support staff, I think we would like to hire within India, and I think that's our plan. But our goal is to make sure that whoever it is can provide the players the best experience possible.
Okay. Whoever fits the job and whoever's good for the job, doesn't matter where he's from.
I believe so. I believe we're taking priority on India just because, again, we're trying to really enter and embrace the region. But the experience is what matters.
Absolutely. I think we got a bunch of other questions, and OpTic, I don't know if you know this, but OpTic is very well known as a Dota brand in India as well. Are you looking to expand to other games, maybe Dota or any other titles in India?
Right now, we're keeping Counter-Strike as our main focus. Again, same as to the answer to the question about going into other regions. We're never closing a door on any possibilities. But right now, we're putting all of our focus and efforts into Counter-Strike, and then we'll see how it goes from there.
I'm sure you guys have a good reason for this. You guys have done a lot of market research about this. I want to ask you a small question and tell you a little bit about the Indian esports scene. So Counter-Strike has better viewership, but Dota finds more success in Asia in qualifiers for international events, and otherwise we've generally had a better success rate in the international tournaments. And the problem is our viewership isn't that good. Is there any reason why you chose one game title over the other? Any reason why Counter-Strike? Because OpTic does everything, but why Counter-Strike in India, not any other title in India?
I think right now we feel more experienced and more well versed in Counter-Strike, and so we're feeling more comfortable and prepared to embrace that game in India and cultivate that kind of esport. Dota is obviously a very global and successful game, but because we're more experienced and we feel more comfortable in Counter-Strike, and Counter-Strike is still one of the top esports in the world in terms of viewership and prize money, it just makes the most sense to enter that.
Okay. I think that's about it. The audience has exhausted themselves with their questions. I for one, I'm looking forward to the close qualifier. I'm going to be there in Bangalore, and I'm excited to see the new talent that's going to be discovered in India. I think this is a good opportunity for us to discover talent and, more than anything, nurture talent correctly with
exactly
the correct knowledge transfer coming in from OpTic America. I think.
Is it just for you?
Prashant, you're lagging. It's your roommates leeching off your internet. Tends to happen. Big house, a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay. You're back.
There we go. You're starting to come back.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was the robotic voice for the last 30 seconds. So, yeah. Yeah, my internet was acting up.
What were you saying?
So my internet was acting up. I didn't realize. Yeah.
Okay. The registrations are still open, right?
Correct. They're open till this Friday.
Okay, folks. As you heard it here, OpTic India, They're looking for an all-Indian roster. SoStronk.com/optic. Do try. Who knows? I mean, a lot of you have been asking questions. I'm only X rank. I play a little bit of Counter-Strike. I think either way, it's worth giving it a shot. Who knows?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
If you feel at all that you have the competitive nature within you and talent or any potential, then you should definitely sign up. Because who knows what we're looking for at that moment. You know, you might be able to showcase something that you didn't even know you had within yourself, or given the right resources, you might be able to develop something that you didn't have the ability to before. So it never hurts to sign up. It can only lead to positive things. And the whole sign up process and first rounds of the scouting process are going to be educational within themselves. You might learn a lot just from that experience.
Absolutely. I mean,
Couldn't have said it any better. Yeah,
it's going to be educational. The best coaches from OpTic coming. I'm really curious to see how much India as a Counter-Strike nation shifts with this knowledge transfer. Me and Aequitas, we discussed about this. We have a 1 hour, 40-minute podcast about this, how knowledge transfer is what it's going to take for not only India, but for Asia to move to the next level and compete with Europe. And obviously, a little bit of boot camping here and there.
Well, to be honest, today is a different. I think my internet's acting up again. But today's the last day to do that because, I mean, there's been so many Asian teams who just upset in IEM Sydney. So that's you know, we're talking about how Asia needs, but yeah.
Yeah, I can't do that anymore. Tyloo is causing upsets. Soon enough, I hope OpTic India is causing upsets as well. I for one, I'm going to register and give it a shot. I'm a P90 Rush B on Dust 2 kind of guy, but maybe I learned something in Bangalore. For now, this is Veewake, Aequitas, and Ashes signing out.
See ya.